Everybody's got to do the cameo. We've got the au pair jumping in. We've got Adam jumping in. There we go. The whole crew. Say hi. Now, anybody who can't see any of this totally needs to go to YouTube to see it all, because now we got the whole crew crowding in behind me. But
yeah, you got a full party.
All right. Okay, get out of here, everybody. Go away. All right.
That means you too.
No, you gonna chill with me, Rourke? All right. You got to let Daddy talk, though. Okay. All right. So, like I warned you, everybody's gonna have to show up. This is just what happens when I'm recording.
Hey,
it's part of being a dad at home, right? I truly enjoy it. So,
good.
So there's a couple things that I want to tear apart there. One, you and I have very similar thought. Like the last 4 to 6 years have been life changing for me and my dad as well. Just like, I mean, my understanding of where he came from and how we're able to talk. And I've never seen my dad since he's retired so relaxed and have such a joy about him. I've never seen that in my dad, right? So my dad spent a lot of time in prison, as he likes to tell people, right? So he was a correction officer for 26 years. Okay. So he was on the correct side of the bars, right? But every time, like I go hang out with him in his neighborhood, and he's in a retirement community with a bunch of other people on a golf course, right? So he'll be walking around and he's like, yeah, I'm living the dream after 26 years in prison. This is great to be able to. And then like he loves just to watch people's face, and then he's like, I was in prison. Like it's just like that's like I've heard it like 5 or 6 times now when I go and visit and I'm playing golf. It's just all right, Dad. Yep, I get it. But now he's living his absolute dream. Like he loves it. So he's golfing 5 days a week. And amazing. I've never seen him happier. And I've learned more about his history as I've grown up that has really helped me understand kind of who he is. But I always felt that same thing. Like he's given so much at work that he doesn't have much left when he comes home. And the only thing that was left when he came home. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You're about to say something.
What changed? What changed for you guys in your relationship over that 5-year window, the last 5 years? How did that change?
I think it was me more than anything. Like he's changed in so much that he's no longer dealing with the prison stuff, right? So that has helped him. But I changed in understanding, like letting go of a lot of the stuff that I was holding on to for years, because I learned more about who my dad is, right? And it helped me cope with and understand what I felt like I was missing when I was a child. Like it was like, wow, like it's not that I was it's more that he didn't have it to give than it was that I wasn't receiving it. So it's hard to get something from somebody if they don't have it to give, right? So it was something that I was able to kind of cope with later on, to realize, all right, you self-centered child, like realize that your dad's been through a lot in his life. He's gone through a lot of different things and different struggles that you've thank God have never had to experience. So that allowed me an opening to build the stronger relationship than I ever had with him, and to really understand who he is. So,
it's interesting to me. Over the last few years, I've worked a lot on trauma stuff, and I think the realization that every kid, and by the way, I was bullied mercilessly from basically like middle school or even late elementary school, even all the way through high school, which was part of the reason I really forged into martial arts over the last 4 or 5 years as well. It's funny how I keep saying 4 or 5 years, but well, it is what it is. But it's interesting when I think about that, and you start to look at what that trauma loop is, and you do some psychology work, you do some self-development work, and realize that every single person has things that are formulated when you're 6, 7, 8 years old, and and then the realization, and I even coach my team on this too, by the way, Adam, and I literally say, like, well, in a very loving way, if it comes up, but it's like, hey, is this the adult Nathan talking, or is this the 6, 8-year-old Nathan talking? And when we can start to recognize when that shows up, and like, oh, I'm needing some attention right now, but I'm not really consciously like recognizing what's happening.
Yeah, there's a guy, Dr. Kelly Flanagan. He wrote a book similar to that talks about this, right? Like every every time that we're getting angry at ourselves, and I'm going to butcher kind of what he's talking about, but we're really reverting back to our inner child, right? What happened to us when we're as an inner child, right? And it's, not to go too down to, to the, quote unquote psychobabble type of nonsense, right? But it does happen that way, right? Where if we really start to break it down, something happened at some point that has caused us to think the way we think, to act the way we act, respond the way we respond. And oftentimes it's, like you were saying, we're starting at 6 or 7 years old, we're developing a lot of those, those habits and those things that are triggering my brain. We were talking about, my oldest with some of the schoolwork, right? So that's going to be something that I'm going to have to break so that it doesn't haunt him later on in life with the perfectionism or something along those lines. So, I want to go 100 different directions on this, but let's say with your kids are I don't know if it's too much time. I don't know if there is a way to spend too much time on it, but do you think about the way that you're raising your kids right now so that you're not causing some of those problems later on, or how are you kind of showing up for the kids to, or thinking about it so that you're like, man, I don't want 25-year-old Colin to have to deal with the way that I acted right now with 12-year-old Colin?
Oh man, I think about it regularly. And have you read David Goggins' latest book?
Yes.
He talks about at one point in there, and for people who don't know who he is, he's former special forces guy and was 300 pounds on a couch and saw a commercial for Navy SEALs and went into a recruiter and said, I'm going to figure this out. Hadn't graduated high school without cheating. And his story is pretty incredible. He also has the most potty mouth of any potty mouth person I've ever heard before. So if you don't know who he is, forewarned. But he says in the book that I'm going to deal with the trauma for both me and my dad. And when I think about that, it's like, I have to start with me. I have to start with both the adult Nathan and the child Nathan, and then figure out like, okay, how am I making myself better? And so I've really had to start first with a frustration of seeing things that pop up with the kids do, or blame it on my wife or blame it on somebody else, and then realize like, hold on a second, dude, like, what are you doing to make sure that you are showing up the most healthy way? And to your actual question, which was, I think no matter what we do, Adam, our kids are going to have something. Mm-hmm. I don't think it matters. So it's like butterfly effect. It's like you change one thing and have another thing. And so instead, what I've tried to figure out and be more present to is blank, blank, blank happened. Now what? Like, so let's do a better job of the other side of the problem versus the front side of the problem. So giving tools to how do we process frustration? How do we process fear? How do we process something that's hard? How do we process going in and having a positive mindset? So that's more what I've really, at least in the today version of me, that's the thing I think about the most.
In the today version of me, tell me what that means.
Well, I think the 5 year ago Nathan, or the 10 years ago Nathan, 20 years ago Nathan, I think they're all different. And so what I believe to be the most true and the most helpful things, I try to be, one of the things I love about Joe Rogan is that he has a bigger audience than any like news program, or, all news programs in the certainly in the United States. I don't know, internationally. And he's willing to just be wrong. And I want to be willing to be wrong. And the version of Nathan today is the person who is learning to understand and listen faster and be more patient. And so that's what I mean by it. And, the Nathan of 5 years from now, by the way, I never talk about myself in the third person, but, me in 5 years, I hope to be a much better person, a much more understanding person, a much more, all those things, because I think stagnation is death, and I can't stand the thought of that.
I was hoping that's the route you were going, is that because, like, to me, every day that we're moving, the same thing I tell my kids, like 1% better every day, right? If I'm trying to be 1% better, I'm going to be, and in 7 years, you're literally a completely different person. All of your cells have all redone, everything. You're quite literally physically a different person, right? So
100%.
If I'm physically a different person, why can't I mentally be a different person? Why can't I adjust the way I'm thinking about things in those 7 years so that I can show up better for my family, show up better for my job, show up better for my church, show up better for everything, right? I be a better person? And 2 years ago, Adam, to speak in the third person like you were, would have thought things differently, right? And I hope that all of us are trying to do that. And that's the same thing I try to tell the boys, because if it's the boys in particular, my job is to teach them to be better men than me. So the only way to teach them to be better men than me is to model how to become a better man.